You know her face. You've seen her in blockbusters, romantic comedies, and award-winning dramas. She's the tough FBI agent, the desperate mother, the girl next door with a sharp edge. But behind the fame, behind the camera, is a story that's far more personal, a story of fear, failure, heartbreak, and a woman who kept going when most people would have quit. This is not a story about Hollywood glamour. This is a story about quiet beginnings, bold choices, and a career built from scratch. A story about Sandra Bullock and how she rose from small town uncertainty to global stardom. This is her journey from small to fame and everything in between. Sandra Annette Bullock was born on July 26, 1964 in Arlington, Virginia. She came into the world far from the Hollywood spotlight. Her mother, Helga Meyer, was a German opera singer. Her father, John Bullock, was an American voice coach and military contractor. Their worlds were different, but their home was filled with music, languages, and discipline.
Father has an incredible sense of humor. So as a child, everything was about great storytelling and great jokes. Everything was funny in our household. I mean, anytime at the dinner table you could, fling something across the table or embarrass somebody or bring up a topic that's unacceptable for the dinner table. It was done. So, I mean, that's the atmosphere I grew up. I know it's a surprise to you. You'd think I had a lot of etiquette in my upbringing.
Sandra spent much of her childhood not in the United States, but in Germany. Her mother toured across Europe, performing classical opera. Sandra often sat backstage, listening, watching, learning. She even sang in some of the children's choirs during performances, wearing tiny costumes and standing in front of large, silent crowds. She later said, "My mom didn't believe in babysitters, so if she was going to be on stage, I was going to be with her. I didn't have a choice." She grew up speaking German before English. She played in quiet corners of opera houses while her mother sang on grand stages. But life wasn't just music and travel. Sandra also felt the distance of not fully belonging. She moved between Germany and the US in her early years, and it left her feeling like an outsider. "I was always the new girl. I had an accent. I got teased. I learned to make jokes before anyone else could." That's what she once told a magazine. As a teenager, her family settled back in the United States. She attended Washington Lee High School in Arlington. By now, her German accent had faded, but she still stood out. This time because she was different in other ways. She wasn't part of the popular crowd. She wasn't a star student, but she had energy, humor, and a strong need to belong. She joined the cheerleading team and the theater department, not because she wanted attention, but because performing gave her a place where she didn't have to be herself, a place where pretending felt safer than reality. At home, her mother was strict. Helga believed in structure and high expectations. Sandra respected her, but also feared her a little. She didn't sugarcoat anything. If I was bad at something, she told me. Despite this, Sandra kept performing. She wasn't sure where it would lead, but she kept going. After high school, she enrolled at East Carolina University to study drama. It was a small school in a quiet town. But Sandra felt restless. She wanted more risk, more challenge. In 1986, just before graduating, she left school and moved to New York City. No plan, no safety net, just one belief. She had to try. "I knew if I didn't go then, I never would," she later said. She didn't move to New York to become famous. She moved to survive. And what came next would test everything she had. New York City in the late 1980s was not a dream. It was a test. Sandra Bullock arrived with barely enough money for a deposit on a small shared apartment. She took acting classes during the day. At night, she worked long hours, bartending, waiting tables, answering phones. Most days, she went to sleep exhausted. Most nights, she asked herself if she had made a mistake. She enrolled at the neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater, one of the most respected acting schools in the country. There, she studied under the methods of Sanford Meisner, who taught actors how to live truthfully in imaginary circumstances. It wasn't glamorous. There were no cameras, no applause, just repetition exercises, intense focus, and raw honesty. And that was something Sandra was good at, being real. Acting was never about being seen for me. It was about disappearing into someone else, she later explained. Her first roles came slowly. She acted in student films, performed in off-Broadway plays where the audience was sometimes just 3 people. Eventually, she started getting auditions for film and TV. Most of them didn't go anywhere. Some ended in rejection before she even entered the room. But in 1989, she landed a small role in a TV movie called Bionic Showdown, The $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it opened a door. A year later, she moved to Los Angeles. She had a few credits now, but still no name. She landed roles in low-budget films, Hangman Who Shot Pet, Fire on the Amazon. The movies were forgettable. The scripts were weak, but Sandra gave every line her full effort. People didn't always take those roles seriously, but I had rent to pay, and I gave it everything, she once said. Her breakthrough almost came with a romantic comedy called Love Potion No. 9 in 1992. The film was light and playful, and Sandra's performance stood out. Audiences noticed her charm, her timing, her ability to be funny without trying too hard. Still, the big roles weren't coming. She was typecast, misunderstood, overlooked. There were moments where she thought about quitting, moments when the rent was late, when the phone didn't ring, when self-doubt whispered louder than ambition. But she didn't stop. She showed up to every audition, learned from every rejection, kept her head down and worked harder. Then, in 1993, she got a small supporting role in a movie called Demolition Man, starring Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. She wasn't the first choice for the role, but when another actress dropped out, Sandra got the call. The movie gave her exposure. It also gave her something rare in Hollywood: momentum. Just a few months later, it's someone who could carry the screen beside Keanu Reeves. Someone tough, likable, and real. They chose Sandra. The film was called Speed, and it would change her life forever. In 1993, Sandra Bullock had never led a major studio film. She was still an unknown name to most of the world. But sometimes a single opportunity changes everything. Point Break and Bill Ted. Audiences liked him, but the chemistry between the two actors surprised even the director.
When I saw them for the first time in 30 years, and when I saw the movie here, the biggest one, I've never been so proud of those two actors. What they did for me, and quite often unnatural to them, what they had to do, is just unbelievable. But the relationship that those two created together is absolutely amazing. And seeing it back on the screen tonight, it was so real. They were absolutely perfect. All the emotions were right, all the laughter was right, all the smiling, the little smoothing. It was really, really cool. And I had to tell them that how great they both were. I mean, I realize more now how great you guys were than at the time, I have to say, because I was busy, but now I really think, oh shit, they're so good.
Felt effortless. Their banter, their quiet moments. It made the story feel human, even when everything else was pure adrenaline. The movie was directed by Jan de Bont, who had never directed before. Nobody knew if it would work. The script gamble. But when Speed opened in the summer of 1994, it exploded at the box office. Audiences loved the tension, the stunts, the humor, and they loved Sandra Bullock. Overnight, she went from the girl in that one movie to a household name. Critics praised her performance. They called her fresh, real, and the perfect balance to Keanu Reeves' quiet hero. I remember waking up one morning and realizing my life wasn't going to be the same, Sandra said in an interview. It was exciting and terrifying. Speed made over $350 million worldwide. It won Academy Awards for sound and editing, and it launched Sandra into a different world. Suddenly she had choices. Scripts piled up. Producers wanted her for romantic comedies, thrillers, and dramas, but the attention also came with pressure. People expected her to repeat the success, to keep proving she belonged. Sandra took time to consider her next move. She didn't want to get trapped in only action roles. She wanted to show she could be funny, serious, and everything in between. Her next film would be a romantic comedy that cemented her status as America's sweetheart. It was called While You Were Sleeping, and for Sandra Bullock, fame was only just beginning. After Speed, Sandra Bullock's life was no longer quiet. She was suddenly one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood, but fame came with choices and expectations. Her next big step was a film that was very different from action, a romantic comedy called While You Were Sleeping. Sandra played Lucy, a lonely train station worker who saves a man's life, then is mistaken for his fiancée while he's in a coma. It was warm, funny, and heartfelt. At first, the studio wasn't convinced she could carry the film, but Sandra had a way of making characters feel real. Audiences didn't just watch her, they believed her. When While You Were Sleeping was released in 1995, it was an unexpected hit. Critics praised her charm and honesty. She was nominated for a Golden Globe, and she became known as America's sweetheart. I was shocked that people connected with it so much, she later said. It felt like a small story, but maybe people wanted something simple and good. But Sandra didn't want to be trapped in one type of role. In the years that followed, she explored different genres. She made thrillers like The Net, where she played a computer analyst caught in a conspiracy. She tried drama in A Time to Kill, based on the John Grisham novel. She even returned to action in Speed 2: Cruise Control, though the sequel didn't match the first film's success. Some critics began to question whether she could keep her momentum, but Sandra kept working film after film. She took risks. Some movies failed at the box office, others became hits. In 2000, she starred in Miss Congeniality, playing an FBI agent who goes undercover at a beauty pageant. The film balanced comedy and action, and audiences loved it. Sandra's performance was funny and fearless. It reminded people why they liked her in the first place. I loved that character, she once said. She was awkward and brave, and that felt close to who I am. Miss Congeniality made over $200 million worldwide. It proved that Sandra wasn't just a one-hit wonder. She was a true movie star. By the early 2000s, she had her own production company, Fortis Films. She started producing some of her own projects, taking control of her career in a way few actresses did at the time. But the more successful she became, the more she valued her privacy. She rarely talked about her personal life. She didn't chase publicity. She focused on the work. Sandra Bullock was now one of the most bankable actresses in Hollywood. But she wasn't finished. Ahead of her were some of her biggest challenges and her greatest rewards. By the late 2000s, Sandra Bullock had spent more than a decade proving she could do almost anything on screen: comedy, action, drama. But she hadn't yet earned the kind of critical respect that comes with awards. That was about to change. In 2009, she took on a role that would transform her career. She played Lee Ann Tuohy in The Blind Side, the true story of a Southern woman who takes in a homeless teenager, Michael O'Hare, and helps him become an NFL player. At first, Sandra didn't think she was right for the part. She was nervous about portraying a real person and uncertain if audiences would accept her in such a serious role. I was scared, she later said. I didn't want to mess up someone's true story. But when she met the real Lee Ann Tuohy, something clicked. She understood her strength and her will. Sandra took the role. The movie was a huge success. It earned over $300 million worldwide and became one of the most popular sports dramas of all time. Audiences loved the story's hope and humanity. Critics praised Sandra's performance as strong and grounded. For her work in The Blind Side, she won the Academy Award for Best Actress. When she stepped on stage to accept the Oscar, she seemed almost in disbelief. Did I really earn this, or did I just wear you all down? She joked.
Did I really earn this, or did I just wear you all down?
It was a moment of triumph, but that same year also brought pain. While her career was at its peak, her personal life was falling apart. Sandra had married motorcycle builder Jesse James in 2005. But in 2010, just days after her Oscar win, reports surfaced that Jesse had been unfaithful. The scandal was everywhere. Tabloids ran headlines about betrayal. Paparazzi followed her every move. Sandra was forced to hide from cameras and process the end of her marriage in private. She filed for divorce. Around the same time, she revealed she had secretly begun the process of adopting a baby boy. In April 2010, she introduced her son, Louis, to the world. My life became about protecting him, she said. Nothing else mattered. In the years after her Oscar win, Sandra stepped back to focus on motherhood. She chose projects carefully, determined to work on stories she believed in. In 2013, she returned to the screen in Gravity, an ambitious space thriller directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Sandra played an astronaut stranded in orbit, fighting to survive alone. Filming Gravity was physically and emotionally draining. She spent hours each day suspended in harnesses and acting inside a special light box to create the feeling of space. But all the effort paid off. Gravity was a massive success, earning over $700 million and winning 7 Academy Awards. Sandra was nominated again for Best Actress. Critics called her performance mesmerizing, raw, and unlike anything she'd done before. With these 2 films, The Blind Side and Gravity, Sandra Bullock showed the world she was more than a movie star. She was a serious actress who could take risks and carry a story alone. In the middle of triumph and heartbreak, she had reached a new level in her career, but she had also learned something important. Fame can lift you up and it can tear you down. What matters is who you are when the cameras go away. For most of her career, Sandra Bullock was known for keeping her personal life out of the spotlight. She rarely talked about relationships. She almost never shared private details. Over time, Sandra adopted a second child, a daughter named Lila. She has described motherhood as the most important part of her life. Being a mom, I finally found something I never knew I was always supposed to be, she said. Despite her fame, Sandra made deliberate choices to protect her children from publicity. She rarely allowed them to be photographed. She kept their daily life as normal as possible. Professionally, she continued to balance her career with family. After Gravity, she worked on films that allowed her time at home, including Minions and Our Brand is Crisis. She also remained active as a producer, developing projects through her company, Fortis Films. In 2015, people named her the world's most beautiful woman. When asked about the title, she laughed and said beauty wasn't important compared to raising her kids. Real beauty is quiet, she explained. It's in kindness. It's in caring. Through all the highs and lows, Sandra kept her focus on what mattered most: her children, her work, her privacy. She once said, "Fame is a byproduct. It's not the thing I wake up for." Even as one of Hollywood's most recognized stars, she stayed true to that belief. Behind the cameras, she was simply a mother and a woman determined to build a good life on her own terms. By the mid-2010s, Sandra Bullock had already achieved more than most actors dream of. She was an Oscar winner, a box office success, a respected producer, but she wasn't finished yet. In 2015, Sandra took on a very different kind of role. She voiced the villain Scarlet Overkill in the animated film Minions. The movie became one of the highest-grossing animated films of all time. It introduced her to a new generation of young fans. That same year, she starred in Our Brand is Crisis, a political dramedy where she played a tough campaign strategist. Although the film didn't perform as well as expected, critics praised her performance. It was another example of Sandra taking risks and exploring new territory. In 2018, she returned to the screen in Ocean's 8, a heist film featuring she took on a very different project, Bird Box, a suspense thriller released on Netflix. In the film, she played Mallory, a mother trying to protect her children in a world overrun by a mysterious force. Bird Box became a cultural phenomenon. It set a Netflix record for the most views in the first week of release. Audiences shared memes, theories, and reactions online. "I didn't expect people to connect with it so much," she admitted. "It was overwhelming in a good way." By this time, Sandra had reached a point where she could choose any project she wanted, or none at all. She was open about taking breaks to spend time with her children. She turned down roles that didn't feel right. She focused on balance. In 2022, Sandra starred in The Lost City, an adventure comedy with Channing Tatum. The film combined romance, humor, and action, genres she had mastered over her long career. Audiences loved it, and it reminded everyone of Sandra's unique ability to blend comedy with heart. That same year, she announced she would be stepping back from acting for a while to focus on her family. She made it clear it wasn't a retirement, just a pause. "I want to be home," she said simply. "I want to be present." It was necessary, and each time she returned to the screen, she brought something new, something honest, something only she could give. Sandra Bullock never set out to become an icon. She didn't come to Hollywood chasing fame above all else. She came because she loved to act, and because she believed in working hard, no matter who was watching. Over the years, she built a reputation for more than just her performances. On set, she was known for her professionalism. Directors said she always arrived prepared. Crew members described her as kind and respectful. Fellow actors often praised her generosity and sense of humor. She became known as one of the most dependable stars in the industry, someone who could carry a film with both talent and grace. Sandra can take control of her career choices. Through Fortis Films, she produced several of her own projects, including Miss Congeniality and The Lost City. She showed that women did it, making decisions and shaping stories. Off-screen, Sandra supported many causes quietly. She donated millions to disaster relief efforts, including support after Hurricane Katrina and the 2011 Japanese tsunami. She rarely spoke about these donations. She simply did what she believed was right. "If I'm blessed enough to have what I have, I should share it," she once said. She also inspired many actors who came after her, especially women who wanted to prove they could be funny, dramatic, powerful, and real, all in one career. Over time, audiences came to see Sandra as more than an actress. She was someone who stayed true to herself. She kept her private life private. She built a family on her own terms, and she never let success change her values. In interviews, she often said she didn't take fame too seriously. What mattered most was the work and the life she built outside of it. "When all of this ends," she said, "I just want to know I was a good mom and a good friend." That simple goal, being a good person before being a celebrity, may be the clearest part of Sandra Bullock's legacy. From a shy girl watching her mother sing in German opera houses, to an Oscar-winning actress loved around the world, she proved that success can be built on honesty, persistence, and quiet strength. This is the story of Sandra Bullock, a woman who never stopped moving forward, a woman who showed that true fame isn't measured in headlines, but in the lives you touch along the way. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life and career of Sandra Bullock. From small beginnings to unforgettable performances to a lasting legacy built on talent, kindness, and determination, her story reminds us that success is never just about luck. It's about showing up again and again, no matter how many times you're told no. Sandra Bullock's life proves that with persistence, a sense of humor, and the courage to take risks, you can overcome setbacks and build something meaningful. Whether she was driving a speeding bus, standing alone in space, or simply raising her children out of the public eye, she always stayed true to herself. Her journey is also a reminder that behind every famous face is a human being with struggles, doubts, and dreams, just like the rest of us. And sometimes the most powerful part of a story is not the fame or the awards, but the quiet moments of resilience along the way. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. We share more stories of remarkable lives and the lessons they leave behind. Stories that inspire, teach, and remind us what's possible. You can also leave a comment below and tell us which actor, artist, or public figure you'd like us to cover next. We'd love to hear your ideas and keep building this community together. Until next time, thank you for watching. And remember, every great story starts with a single step forward. Yours could be just around the corner.